As developers, we all love Spring Boot. It reduces development time, increases our productivity, and we avoid writing a lot of boilerplate code. It helps us produce applications that just run. But no matter what, we always see this, the Spring banner, every time we start our application. Think about all the log files and consoles in data centers across the world where this shows up again and again every day. Maybe it's time for a change. Let's see how we can turn the banner off, replace it with something we choose instead, and even how we can inject our own build information into the banner at runtime, so we know exactly what release of our code we're running. We'll need a sample Spring Boot application to use. Rather than writing one from scratch, I have a simple Spring Boot application here that I used in another video that demonstrates scheduling. Here's a link to that video. The main method here is pretty standard stuff for a Spring Boot application. The Spring Boot application annotation enables auto-configuration, component scanning, and configuration. The enable scheduling annotation might be new to you. It specifies the creation of a background task executor so scheduling can occur. Also notice I'm calling exit on the Spring application and then calling system.exit. The result of this is the Spring application only runs one time instead of running continuously and returns the exit code to the system. The heart of this application is in the class called MyFirstTask. The add component specifies the class as a bean. We use the logger to log our messages, and then there's one method called performTask. It simply logs the current time. The schedule annotation allows us to configure the schedule task to be run by the background task executor that we set up in the scheduler application class we just looked at. All right, enough talk. Let's run it. And when we do, we get our lovely Spring banner that we're used to seeing along with the log messages. Notice the application runs just once and then exits with a code of 0. All right, so this is our baseline. No different than the millions of other Spring Boot applications running in the world at this moment. Now, let's see how we can turn off the banner from the command line. To do that, we'll need to package our application as a jar so we can run it independently of the IDE. This is a Maven project, so let's open up the Maven panel and select Package to create our runnable jar. If you happen to prefer or are forced to use Gradle, the steps here will be slightly different, but the result, an executable jar, will be the same. When the task is done, if we open the target folder over in the project panel, we see our jar was created. Now let's open a new terminal window in IntelliJ and cd into the target folder and run dir to see our newly created jar. First, we'll run the code as usual by typing in java-jar scheduler 001 snapshot.jar, and we see the Spring banner. Let's recall the command with the up arrow, and this time we'll add the command line option --spring.main.banner-mode equals off, and run the code again. Now, no Spring banner. Let's see how we can turn off the banner using application.properties. Let's close out of Maven in our run window. Open up the application.properties file we already have available. Right now it's empty. Let's add a new entry by typing spring.main.banner-mode equals off. And let's go back to our scheduler application where the main method is and run it by using the green arrow from the gutter. Our application starts up, and in the run window down below, we get a bannerless startup. But not everyone uses application.properties. Some folks prefer application.yaml instead. So let's see how we can suppress the banner using the application.yaml file. Now instead of an application.properties, we have an application.yaml file in its place. It's also empty, so let's add an entry. We'll type in spring followed by a colon to create our first key. On the next line, which IntelliJ indents properly for us, we'll add an element called main, and then we'll add a new line and another element within that called banner-mode and give it a value of off. We'll jump back to our main method and run it once again. And we see our application start up and run with no banner displayed. Let's see how to turn the banner off now with no code or configuration, but instead using an environment variable. In the command window, let's cd into the target directory and run dir. Here we see the scheduler app that we built previously with Maven. First, let's run it the usual way in order to demonstrate that it doesn't have the banner turned off via a configuration entry in either the application.properties file or YAML file. We'll run java-jar scheduler 001 snapshot.jar, and there we see our lovely banner. Now let's set an environment variable. I'm in Windows here, but this would work equally well in Linux or Mac. For Windows, I'll enter set space spring underscore main underscore banner dash mode and set it equal to off. Now let's recall the command with the up arrow key and run it once again. And like magic, the banner is gone. Now let's see how we can turn the banner off in code. Back in IntelliJ, we'll add a new line under our assignment statement and invoke the setBannerMode method of the MyApp object and set it to banner.mode.off. And then run the code. And we get no banner. In effect, what we've done here is hard-coded to be off by default now. Now that we've set the banner off by default, let's see how we can turn it back on when we want to. Let's build the code that we just wrote with Maven so we have a standalone jar. When it's done building, we have our jar file. So let's open up a terminal window in the target directory using IntelliJ and run dir. First, we'll run the code using plain old java-jar in the jar file to prove that the banner is turned off by default right now. Looks good. Now let's recall the command with the arrow key. And at the end, we'll specify --spring.main.banner-mode equals log and run that. When we do, we see that the banner is back. In this case, the banner will be written to our log file. There's another variation of this. Let's recall the command and replace log with console and run that code. The output looks the same. We get the banner once again, but in this case, the banner will be written to console, essentially standard out, rather than the log file. All right, enough of the Spring banner. What about making our own banner? Let's open up a browser and search for ASCII Art Generator. And let's pick the first selection, patorjk.com, really not sure how to pronounce that. Up in the box where it says type something, let's do that. We'll enter please subscribe. Notice in the drop-downs we can select different fonts, weights, as well as heights. We'll go ahead and use the defaults. Let's click the center button at the bottom of the page to select and copy the text. We'll go back to IntelliJ. In our resources folder, let's create a new file. We'll right-click and select New File and call our file mybanner.txt. Our file opens in the editor panel. Let's paste in the text we copied from the ASCII Art site. And now let's go to application.properties and add a new property. We'll type in spring.banner.location equals mybanner.txt. And let's run our code. I should mention I don't have the banner turned off or disabled in this example. Our code compiles, and when it runs, look at that. We see our new banner in place of the Spring banner. This is very cool. We could create our own custom banners for our teams, projects, microservices, and so on. If you notice in the custom banner, we have no application name or version information. So let's fix that. In our mybanner.txt file, let's add placeholders to do some variable substitution. We'll add the variables application.version and application.title. The double colon is just to make it pretty. It's not a command. And then back in the application.properties file, let's add the two properties that we'll be referencing. We'll set version equal to 1.0 and title to MyApp. And let's run that code. When it runs, we get the please subscribe banner message, and below it are the 1.0 and MyApp variable values we added. We don't want to keep updating the version in our application.properties file, so let's see how we can set it at runtime. Before we start, notice my banner.txt file has just the application version and title, and no custom text banner. We won't change anything about our code or configuration. Instead, we'll package our application with Maven, so we have an executable jar. And let's open a command prompt in the target directory. We see our jar files there. Let's run it with java-jar scheduler 001 snapshot.jar. We see the default value of 1.0 in my app, but that was picked up from our properties file. Let's recall that command with the up arrow. And let's add -- application.version and set it equal to 999. And we'll run that code. And boom, there it is, the 999 in our banner. You could, for example, use this to inject your build information into your application banner at startup, so you know exactly what version of the code you're running. All right, there are a bunch of interesting ways to manipulate the banner for your Spring Boot application. If you found this useful, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and remember to always begin secure.